some of the press may be wondering why we are announcing offshore drilling in a hangar at Andrews Air Force Base. Well, if there's any doubt about the leadership that our military is showing, you just need to look at this F-18 fighter and the light armored vehicle behind it. The Army and Marine Corps have been testing this vehicle on a mixture of biofuels. And this Navy fighter jet, appropriately called the Green Hornet, will be flown for the first time in just a few days on Earth Day.
Then they begin their cutting their way into trees that may be as old as our civilization.
More than half the farmers of the world live in subsistence agriculture outside of the economies of their own country.
You want to be a farmer? Here's a couple of acres.
All of the world's history since Christ was born could have occurred during the life of perhaps one of these redwoods.
When a herbicide is effective as Roundup with cost you less, it's Roundup. Now that's something to see your dealer about.
World hunger is created by destroying people's capacity to feed themselves.
So the saws keep working and the axemen bring the tree down. Usually they fall just as the axemen figured. Trees that may be over 20 feet thick at the base. Trees that are so big that more than 20 houses can be made from just one tree. Trees that grow over 350 feet high.
Good evening. A unique day in American history is ending, a day set aside for a nationwide outpouring of mankind seeking its own survival. Earth Day, a day dedicated to enlisting all the citizens of a bountiful country in the common cause of saving life from the deadly byproducts of that bounty, the fouled skies, the filthy waters, the littered earth.
Oh yeah, Earth Day! It's gonna be great! We're gonna talk about rivers and trees and saving them.
Food Not Bombs. We're here serving free food, free vegan food to anybody who wants it. And this is food that would otherwise be wasted, that's reclaimed from restaurants and produce distributors.
I mean, you have 90 organizations all around us with tangible things to do and a lot of people that engage with all of them.
I love Food Not Bombs. They're gonna save the world. We should be feeding people and not bombing them. Here you go, Philippe.
I think that's the most functional piece of this entire event, that people are having real conversations about real things that are happening not just today, but next week and the week after that.
T-Rex was a vision that happened as Aloe and I were hitchhiking around the country.
It's a 22-foot school bus that is converted into a art workshop here at Earth Day in Portland. We are serving free tea, and within the bus you can go in and paint and make buttons.
There's not enough public space in this country. Horrible, depreciated amount of public space. City Repair is a group of individuals that reclaimed public space 12 years ago illegally and created a loophole within legislation here in Portland where if you have an 80% consensus in a 2-block radius, you can really do whatever you want.
Sherrod Square started in about 1996. A group of neighbors both frustrated by the lack of nearby places for their community to gather, and a few very visionary architects and designers in the neighborhood who felt like our American neighborhoods and cities were missing vital components of what a city needs to be healthy and sustainable, specifically gathering places.
And that's the whole idea with City Repair. It's like, well, let's paint this intersection, or let's build a kiosk there. People can post things, and then maybe there's 7 different conversations around that kiosk throughout the week. Boom, all of a sudden more neighbors know each other. The group of enthusiasts behind such movements needs to grow. How do you grow that? You reach out to larger demographics. And I feel like in this movement, it's time that we reached out to people that definitely disagree with us or have other ideals, and reach out to them and say, hey, look, sustainability is a logical thing. It's about the livability of the human race.
Youth Liberation Front, the most radical fringe of the environmental movement. The same group that left SUV dealerships across America looking like scenes from the Sunni Triangle, their way of protesting the gas-guzzling habits of American car buyers.
Κοίτησαν την κομμουνιστική εκστρατεία. Ανάμεσα στα θύματα της, δύο από τη δική της ένωμη τάξη. Είναι αναρχική και αλλοδαπή η...
Emiliano Zapata, el jefe del movimiento revolucionario del sur. Su programa puede resumirse en dos palabras: tierra y libertad.
Unemployment and a cut in wages caused the Seattle shipyard workers to strike. They called on all workers to do the same, to create a general strike, a massive stop-work movement that would shut the city down. It was an unprecedented move, forbidden by every union charter and condemned by the American Federation of Labor.
We are slaves, and when slaves are no longer profitable, they are killed. Jews in your masses, the hour is near. You must be prepared to resist, not to give yourselves up like sheep to slaughter.
That Soviet nuclear accident in the Ukraine created fallout today in Chicago. Not radiation, not that kind of fallout. This was a purely economic reaction. U.S. investors betting tens of millions of dollars on grain and livestock futures. Simply put, investors were assuming today that radioactive fallout is contaminating Soviet wheat.
Based on this Soviet photo, it's hard to say much of anything. The picture, released today, purports to show the nuclear fire under control. But a U.S. satellite photo suggests otherwise, and that a second reactor in the complex may be burning. As the cloud of radiation grows, so too does anxiety throughout Europe. Radiation levels in at least half a dozen countries are 3 to 20 times above normal.
The Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor. Our west coast became a potential combat zone. Living in that zone were more than 100,000 persons of Japanese ancestry, 2/3 of them American citizens, 1/3 aliens. We knew that some among them were potentially dangerous, but no one knew what would happen among this concentrated population if Japanese forces should try to invade our shores. Military authorities therefore determined that all of them, citizens and aliens alike, would have to move.
Solamente queremos saber dónde están nuestros hijos, vivos o muertos. Angustia porque no sabemos si están enfermos, si tienen frío, si tienen hambre, no sabemos nada. Y desesperación, Señor, porque ya no sabemos a quién recurrir. Consulados, embajadas, ministerios.
This is London calling. Here is a news flash. The German radio has just announced that Hitler is dead.
In these dark times, when millions of everyday heroes are losing their homes, losing their jobs, and going uninsured, we're all being called upon to find that inner hero inside of all of us, to rise up against the very villains that have brought this tragedy upon us.
I am Master of Degrees. I'm super overeducated. Unfortunately, I can't get a job. And because I haven't had a job, I can't get a job. And I'm too educated for the jobs that I apply for.
I am the human resource. I love it when things work on time. Work for me, baby, work for me!
I'm Captain Generica. All the superhero people need at half the price. I say support your local artisans and craftspeople. Get better quality at a better affordable price, supporting the community. Right now, millions of everyday heroes are out of work, are losing their homes, and are uninsured. And rather than taking to task the corporate and economic supervillains that have pillaged our economy and made billions of dollars while doing it, there are those who have descended into a cloud of darkness.
Impact segment tonight, some very nasty displays across the country this past weekend. In Phoenix, Portland, Oregon, and Madison, Wisconsin, Tea Party people held rallies.
I'm sorry I interrupted your birthday party. Thank you.
Birthday? My dear child, this is not a birthday party.
The beautiful thing about the Tea Party movement is that we are controlling the narrative.
Meet Pamela Gorman, conservative Christian, and a pretty fair shot.
I'm Stephen Cruiser. Pamela, thank you for being here.
Something seems to be troubling you.
I'm a serious politician.
Now, my dear, as you were saying...
When I was a kid, you had to go to the zoo to see a Democrat. We are continuing this movement forward, and we will not be stopped despite all the whiny horn-blowing crap, okay?
I'll say it's rude.
Talk your shit somewhere else, bucko.
It's very, very rude indeed.
And you're a frickin' scumbag Marxist socialist.
Very, very, very rude indeed.
Never had a wandering liberal phase, okay?
This is the stupidest tea party I've ever been to in all my life.
As you can see, white rage is alive and well. And rather than going after the corporate supervillains like the Man, the outsourcerer, downsizer, the boot, and let's not forget their master, the invisible hand. Instead, all of that righteous rage is being directed at scapegoats like Phantasma, an undocumented immigrant who's part of the great American tradition of people who've come to this country to build a better life for themselves.
I'm sorry, you can't film there. You can't film the bank property.
I can film the bank property.
No, you really can't. I can call security.
I'm in a public space. I can film this bank.
I know, but I can't.
Yeah, it's actually against the law.
We've been, since the 1970s, in a phase of what we call wage repression, that wages have remained stagnant. The share of wages in national income right throughout the OECD countries has steadily fallen. It's even steadily fallen in China, of all places. So that there are less and less being paid out in wages. Well, wages turn out to be also the money which buys goods. So if you diminish wages, then you've got a problem with where's your demand going to come from? And the answer was, well, get out your credit cards. We'll give everybody credit cards. So we'll overcome, if you like, the problem of effective demand by actually pumping up the credit economy. And American households, British households have all roughly tripled their debt over the last 20, 30 years. And a vast amount of that debt, of course, has been within the housing market. And out of this comes a theory which is very, very important, that capitalism never solves its crisis problems. It moves them around geographically.
My understanding that banks and the government keep saying we don't have money to support sustainable energy and other energy uses when we keep pouring money into this coal industry.
Most people don't know the connection between big financiers and environmental destruction, and even less so environmental destruction and its effect on people, especially poor people.
Banks help fund these projects that inevitably are going to kill people and are killing people. Like they want to start exporting 80 million tons of coal out of Longview, Washington. Yeah, yes, like tar sands. I mean, well, this isn't tar sands. Tar sands is its own thing, but it's all dirty.
Wells Fargo is a bank that funds the transportation of coal. They also participate in funding mountaintop removal. Banks need to divest from their investments in these coal industries and in coal companies, such as Massey Energy, so that we can stop killing innocent Americans through lung disease, heart disease, lung cancer, asthma. Thousands of deaths a year can be directly related to coal pollution.
A really great example that's sort of overlooked is with what happened in Wisconsin with the union busting. Most people don't know that that's deeply connected to the environmental movement. The people who are financing Scott Walker are the Koch brothers, and the Koch brothers get a lot of their money from tar sands, and tar sands get a lot of their money from banks. Right. And so these things are all tied together. We find that we have the same enemies, we have the same struggles in common. And so if we can dismantle these systems and these centralizations of power, we're going to get benefits for all of us in all of our different communities.
Like mining operations, which currently don't provide that many jobs and are really dangerous for a lot of communities, or poison the groundwater, including the shipment, which they're hoping to start exporting 80 million tons of coal out of Longview, Washington. Really soon with uncovered cars, those areas already have some of the highest rates of asthma in the region. Oh yeah. And so that's going to be poisoning people. A lot of people are not really happy with that. Without the big banks that are funding it, then those operations wouldn't happen. Okay, if you're interested, you can figure out what the issue was. Yeah, totally. Thank you.
Get involved in your community. Talk to people about it. Talk to people about what your values are, what your shared values are, and start thinking about ways that you can make, personal changes in your life and on a larger scale. So in your community, working on getting more renewable energy in your communities, working on using less energy in your communities, and whether that's through groups that already exist, creating your own groups. There's plenty of venues. Cool.
We want to see you, Mr. Hanna.
What's the matter? Somebody pay their bill?
We want our money. Yes, money.
You want your money?
We want to get paid.
Oh, you want my money? Is that fair? Do I want your money? I'll make you all a promise. If you'll all stick with me and work hard, we'll forget about money. Think of the opportunities here in Florida. 3 years ago, I came to Florida without a nickel in my pocket. Now I've got a nickel in my pocket.
That's all very well, Mr. Hammer, but we haven't been paid in 2 weeks, and we want our wages.
Wages? You want to be wage slaves? Answer me that. No, of course not. Well, what makes wage slaves? Wages.
We're going to Delhi. What's happening at the Delhi?
I don't know.
Climate Justice Coalition rally. Bike ride.
Hi, my name is Emma. I am with the Climate Justice Coalition of Portland. Climate justice is environmental justice and building solidarity with groups that feel the brunt of environmental degradation. We believe that capitalism is one of the root causes and one of the main reasons that climate change is here with us today.
Whether we're unionized or not, working people have common interests, and that is the wealthy have oppressed us for centuries.
Corporations are just dumping this everywhere. They're not paying taxes. They're making money off of exploitation of the earth and of the environment. And part of economic justice is going to be taking that money back. Every building should have solar cells. Every building should have solar arrays.
The environmental movement and the problems that we have with not getting funding for renewable energy and the problems of global warming are all related to corporate profits. And people are figuring it out. We're saying no, like people are doing in the Middle East, like people are doing in Wisconsin. It's not going to be about just taking slogans such as about hope for change. We're going to take real change and make real change here in the street.
Look, a revolution, a green revolution coming to a store near you.
What does it mean to go green?
It's a unique new gel specially designed from hot chocolate sauce.
Does it mean I'm money hungry?
Protecting the environment will make you feel virtuous and put some extra money in your pocket.
I thought going green just meant that you drove an electric car.
This spring, let your friends be green with envy over the great deal you got on an environmentally friendly Honda from Proctor Honda in Tallahassee.
The folks that I report to, they don't eat granola.
Does it mean that I've been poisoned?
Roundup Ready to Yield. Roundup Ready Canola. Roundup Ready Sugar Beets. Roundup Ready Flex Cotton.
You should go over big with the tree huggers.
What kind of light bulbs do you use in your house?
My sunshine away.
Polluted the area, we have no good water, we can't bath in it. And this is the water we drink, this is the water we bath. can see for yourself. You look at the plants in the areas, they can even give you more detail about what we are talking about.
Social justice!
Climate justice!
Social justice!
Climate justice!
Social justice! Climate justice is social justice! Climate justice is social justice! Climate justice is social justice!
Well, we're actually just looking you up on the internet.
My name's Anthony.
Hi, Anthony.
Nice to meet you. I live here in Hood River. So we wanted to bring this resolution proposal and make sure that got to the city council members and the mayor. Also would like to be a part of the meeting that this agenda actually gets put on. The Alberta Tar Sands up in Canada are the most environmentally destructive project on the planet.
Here to raise awareness about the Alberta Tar Sands and the Tar Sands Giga Project, and be in solidarity with the Klamath Nation, who are proposing to stop the heavy haul giant machinery from entering the Tar Sands region.
The actual extraction zone right now with the open pit mines is the size of the UK.
A lot of the equipment is being made in Korea and shipped. It's planned to be shipped up to Colombia.
Tar sands actually stretch from Alberta to Saskatchewan to Manitoba, so across the whole north.
It's a native issue, it's an environmental issue, it's a labor and worker rights issue.
They're proposing to put in 12 nuclear reactors in northern Alberta. We have some uranium deposits, nuclear gas. They're going to power up everything essentially that they can to get at this oil.
It's the year anniversary of the oil disaster in the Gulf. So I guess it's there's actions happening all over the country.
There's been actions in at least 4 countries that I'm aware of, in New Zealand, in Canada, in the UK, and here in the United States.
Oh, I seen the tar sand video, and it really touched me because the way it's affecting the water and all the life that springs from that. So I'm here today to support what we've all been, us Indian people have been fighting for, is this Mother Earth.
We have folks from all over here, from BC, Canada, from Alberta, from the Columbia Gorge, from Portland, from Bend, from Olympia, from Eugene.
We do know that there are people as far as like Trinidad and Tobago and South America, you know, the Congo, where there are tar sands, and they're going to be using the technology that they developed in Alberta to go in and mine in other parts of the world.
The oil is being shipped from indigenous lands in Alberta and making the land so toxic that indigenous people can hardly live there, with respiratory disease, lupus, cancer, lesions on moose and salmon.
We've said that it's genocide. You know, the Canadian government would disagree, and so would the American government. But we do understand like the need for cross-border alliances, particularly because of things like NAFTA, the MIA, the SPP, different international trade agreements, because we're locked into an energy agreement with the U.S. where 63% of our energy resources come to the U.S. no matter what.
You call it energy security, but really it's just the governments of Canada and America trying to secure energy for themselves.
You would think in a place like Alberta, where there's so much heavy crude and regular crude, it's like the Texas of the North, that we would have the cheapest gas prices. You would think a community of Fort Chipewyan and other places where the resource extraction is happening would have free oil and gas.
American military in particular is the largest consumer of Alberta tar sands. And those tar sands are coming from Dene and Cree territory and Métis and Blackfoot territory.
This whole scheme is completely undemocratic. Through the carbon trading system the Obama administration and other governments are setting up.
Indigenous sovereignty goes back to traditional laws, and the way a nation defines themselves, comes back to their traditional laws and their ways of life, based on hunting, fishing, based on how they use the land and protect and maintain the land.
They take these big big pipes, and they shoot steam and chemicals into the earth, and they heat up the oil, and so it separates out with those chemicals and with the hot water, the steam, and then they suck it out.
It takes 3 times as much energy to extract tar sands as conventional oil.
And what they do is, instead of leaving a big giant tar sands tailings pond of chemicals on the land, they leave it in the earth. And they're trying to tell our people and the people in Alberta and in Canada that it's safe.
and we know better.
In fact, there's more energy put into tar sands extraction than you would get from it. So it's purely about corporate greed at the expense of indigenous peoples, wildlife, the biggest wilderness on the continent, water quality, the purity of the Columbia River, and all these communities.
If we allow the tar sands equipment and Exxon and Imperial Oil to solidify this is a route to get that tar sands equipment up to Alberta, Canada, it only solidifies the need for our dams.
This is a very, very special river. It's a very important river for people, for animals, for our community.
Dams have almost directly correlated with a drop in salmon population. They used to be the industry. It was logging and it was salmon that held and tied native people to their land and European Oregonians and Washingtonians to their land.
There are a few communities that actually brought back salmon to the river where it was almost wiped out. They brought it back through the traditional first salmon ceremonies. They didn't do that with the help of the governments. They didn't do that with the help of corporations. They did that on their own. They did that with the elders and the youth communicating and learning from each other so they could actually find ways to bring that back.
We know we come from the Mother Earth. We love our Mother Earth. We were taught like that by our ancestors.
Because we see that if we can stop one of the tentacles from happening, we can send a message to industry that people don't want heavy crude. They don't want this kind of extractive industry, and they realize the impact that it's having on all people, not just First Nations people, not just Canadian people or Americans, but what's really going to happen with the tar sands.
The hoopla of Earth Day is over. The problems remain. Only time will tell if these demonstrations accomplished anything. But let's summarize the points that were brought home today to a lot of people who have missed the point so far. For instance, the militants who see all this as an establishment trick to divert attention from what to them are more urgent concerns like civil rights or like Vietnam. They seem to have missed the point that there are no civil rights or peace in a lifeless world.
We don't have monitors, so I'm gonna check this right quick, see how it is. I think it might be cool.